again, I hate to be a bummer, but I do think it's very important to have a relationship to mortality. It's not being conscious of the fact that we are on a freight train to the grave it's negative for us. Our mortality is what gives us energy. It's the thing that makes it, puts a reason behind doing something today instead of waiting 6 months or retirement. People sit there like, I will be happy when I retire. And it's like, you're going to get hit by a bus the day before you retire. You realize that, don't you? You're going to rob yourself of 30 years of happiness in order to postpone it to a point in time when you probably are going to make it anyway. So being sort of conscious of this question, which is if just something horrific happened to me soon, in the next couple of days, would I be relatively happy? Just saying, yeah, well, I'm doing all I could do. I was being as aggressive towards the life that I wanted to lead as I could be. Or would you be regretful and be like, oh no, all these things I could have done? So that's exclusively how are you approaching your life. Because believe me, we all just, it's the Seneca book on the shortness of life. That's why I love it so much, because he basically says, look, life is short if you don't know how to use your life, and life is long if you do know how to use your life. And so this is all about being able to live a rich and full life. And so just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay. How you think matters. This concept of positive thinking, it sounds very cliche, and I, to this day, am finding this to be, it's challenging. It is a challenging thing, and I would throw this out as a specific challenge to you, is to pick a day sometime in the near future and say, like, this is the day where I'm going to think positively from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. And then start to see how many times your brain just wants to drift into negative spaces. It is odd, and I think somehow, I really do think it's somehow attached to our animal ancestry and our desire to, like, postponing gratification isn't a good thing when you're an animal, when you don't know where the next meal is coming from. It's vital that you just eat what you find and you just go. You don't sit around and think about it. You're like, oh, I might put on some saddlebags or whatever. And say, yeah. You just eat. And I think that's what negative thinking is. Negative thinking is, there isn't going to be any more food. I'm going to eat this food. And that's sort of what I think people get into. So keep that in mind, and that it's a skill. The positive thinking is something that you can encourage over time through awareness and a desire to do it. It's just really important to realize that it's not a, it just sounds so bumper stickery, but it really is a sort of really interesting philosophical approach to life, to sit back and say, like, man, I'm going to be positive. This, somebody scraped my car. Well, maybe this gives me an opportunity to have a new color or whatever. Being able to sort of think in ways of realizing that the worst circumstance, there's something valuable and positive in it. So, this is at the sort of bottom of this. It's scarcity versus abundance mentality. This is there's a lot of words on this slide, and I really encourage you, if you get a chance, to read this. This concept is really important, which is the scarcity mentality is a zero-sum paradigm of life. When you look, much like being positive or negative, being abundant or scarce is sort of just a state of mind that you're in. But it's amazing how you can walk down the street and just be like, oh, everything sucks. I'll never have what I want. Look at all these people, they're all happy. It's a terrible thing. And that same street can be a walk where you just sit back, wow, look at this. People are alive, the sun's out, everything's great. It's about sort of believing that around the corner there's something good. And the fact is that scarcity and abundance have exactly the same amount of proof in the universe. That if you want to prove that we live in a scarce universe, you can do it. There's no problem making that proof. And the exact same thing is true for the abundant universe. These are states of mind that are divorced from reality. So just keep that in your head that if you can wake up and just kind of say, you know what, no matter what happens when I walk out the door, something good can happen. I can make something good happen. This deep inner sense of personal worth and security is just a wonderful sensation. And again, there's as much proof of this as there is of the scarcity. And you will be approaching the universe from a much more positive attitude when people come up to the office and ask for help. Instead of going, oh, you're just wasting my time. I don't have any time to help you. That you open up and kind of go, you know what, yeah, I got time. Well, let me take care of this. It'll be good. Because you're helping somebody else. And anytime that you can give energy back into the universe like that, something good's going to happen in your life. So, next one. Opportunities and offers. This is just something I came up with recently. It's another way of looking. Some people say, like, always say yes to everything. And something in my head that says that's like crazy talk. And so I started to parse through it. And I realized that opportunities are the things you should say yes to all the time. Anything that you sort of look at and kind of like, I don't know about that. Let me go find out about it. That's when you say yes. The only time you say no is when an offer is made, when you actually have to make a commitment one way or the other. That's when you put on your logical hat of saying, I do have the ability and time to do this, and I don't have the ability and time to do this. But be aware of those distinctions, because I think a lot of times, and I do this a lot myself, someone will call me up and they'll say, hey, let's go to a happy hour someplace. And my brain just starts to go on this noodle of just like, I know exactly what's going to happen if I go to this happy hour. It's like, I don't know anything. I just need to go. If I go and it's boring, then I can leave. That's when I make my no decision, is after I've exposed myself to the opportunity, not when I make up this hallucination in my head that I know exactly what it's going to be. You don't know it until you know it. So, personal integration. This concept, I think, is very powerful. We have positive and negative parts of ourselves. Jung calls it the shadow, all the negative things in us. And from Jung's perspective, and I always thought this was a very interesting one, says that everything that's really interesting and energetic and artistic and fun about us, it's in our shadow. And that it's, the boring part is what we sort of show to the world. And that the challenge really comes when you start to try and pretend you don't have these different parts of yourself. That's when you get into trouble. Integration is just this idea of saying, look, you know what? There's good things about me, there's bad things about me. I think in the balance of things that I bring an overall positive experience to the universe. But, sometimes I like to sit around and watch Law and Order and rub my belly. And that's not helping anybody else out, but it just gives me a chance to sort of recharge my batteries. I don't consider it to be particularly positive, but it's just a part of where I'm coming from. I'm a very introverted personality, and that's something that requires alone time in order to recharge my batteries. And immediate versus deferred gratification. I discussed this earlier, but the bottom line is about this, it's when you start to choose your goals, you're going to have to sacrifice something. I don't care what it is. It could be time, it could be money, it could be food, it could be whatever. Whatever is the thing you're trying to go towards, by definition, it's something that isn't in your life now. And so that usually means you have to give something up in order to get this other thing. So being able to think in terms of like, it's okay for it to be a month until I get to eat my Snickers bar, because it's more important for me to lose this weight in the intervening period. But if you don't have that sense, if you don't have any kind of sense of value proposition, it becomes really difficult to make those decisions right when you need to make those decisions. Again, this is what I talked about earlier. This question is something I use with my clients all the time, which is a screwdriver a good tool? You know what? It's amazing that other people go, oh yeah, of course, a screwdriver is one of the best tools in the history of mankind. It's genius. It's genius, I tell you. And it's like, for what? For hanging drywall? Is it good for jacking a car up? What's it good for? That there is no answer to this question. You have to drill down. You have to like, what for? Is it a good task for screwing in a screw? It is genius for that. But for other tasks, it's a terrible tool. So the same object can have completely different value propositions based on what you put up against it. So, that's why, and this is what in business, the tendency, that people just want, they want to hedge every conceivable bet they can possibly hedge. And in the design business, there's a phrase that says, design for everyone is designed for no one. And it's because once you make the pool too broad, your design will have no identifiable features to it. There's just not going to, there's too many things in it. So to make effective tools, you have to sort of like say, what do I want to have happen? That's why when you make your goals, it's so important to understand like exactly what you want, and in addition to that, why do you want it? Like be real clear with yourself. Like this is, the number of times I see people get into these sort of like boxes where they're bringing goals that were sort of given to them by other people, and that they're probably pretty good. It could be something simple like, you should lose weight. That's a good idea for pretty much everybody. But I'm here to tell you, there are not a lot of people who are willing to sort of dedicate their lives to that tomorrow. It's got to be you that wants to do it. So just keep that in mind when you are moving forward with these ideas. Okay. Win-win propositions are vital. When you approach your personal success, whatever it happens to be, at the worst, it should be neutral in its effect on others. But you should really be trying to find win-win solutions for anything that you do. It's going to put a lot of energy behind you because it causes external forces to not array themselves against you. Anytime you get into a win-lose proposition, that's immediately a conflict posture. So when you think about your goals, particularly I've always thought about things like weight loss in relationship to people who are in committed relationships. One person trying to do it and another person not trying to do it that can start to get very win-losey real quickly in the same kitchen. So that's why it's so important when you've got stakeholders to sit down and talk to people who are going to be in your life and show them, bless you, and how it's going to benefit them, like how your goal will benefit them in the long run. So just always kind of keep that in mind. Okay. Need versus desire. To me, this is a real fundamental concept. We as people tend to confuse these two ideas, that we will assign a desire the features of a need. And that's bad. That is bad. Our needs are few. We have very few needs in life. And the definition of a need is something that keeps you alive and going. That's it. So it's okay to have desires. There's nothing wrong with having a desire. It's just when you start to confuse the two. Understand that if I want to write a book, that's awesome, but I still need to feed myself. And that the feeding myself has to precede the writing of the book. It just has to, even though I have a lot of desire and passion for it. I don't get to, I can't forget the realities of my life. So just keep that in mind as you look at these things. Always be aware of the confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is just, believe me, if you've got a proposition that you want to throw on the table right now, I can go out and find proof for it in seconds. It's very easy to find support for whatever general idea you want to throw on the table. So just get out of that. Just get out of that kind of thinking so that when you have to do research for yourself, that you go, like when you happen to see something that completely supports your point of view, push past that. Go and try and find alternate points of view, because that's going to help you when you are sort of up against the challenges that are occurring during a goal that you're doing. Meaning that, let's say I'm halfway through, I get to a real critical juncture in writing my novel, like maybe I get a new job, and my time starts to be sucked up more. That I can go find proof that, it's okay to just give up. Just give up. I mean, what do you need to write a book for? I can also find proof that there's strategies about using your spare time to be able to continue moving forward and getting to your success. So just be aware of that we carry with us biases, and that it's easy to prove them, so just make sure that if you're up against something where you aren't really doing the best you can do, that you don't go find proof as to why it's okay for you to stink. Okay? Yeah. And the last thing here is just pay the piper. Just there's some core things that you have to take care of in your life. Your health, your sleep. Sleep is, and particularly in this day and age, people don't sleep enough. And it kills your ability to succeed at tasks because you just don't have the mental acuity associated with succeeding. Your diet and your exercise. We are animals. We need to be able to function properly in the world. And one other thing is this idea of realistically assessing your available time. As I mentioned before, there's things in our life, usually it's jobs and families, that just take up X amount of time, at minimum. There's a minimum amount of time that it takes up. And oftentimes it takes up even more than that, like the commuting time and the sort of like this time that we don't document well. But this is important only because you don't want to say, like, I am going to write 6,000 words of prose every day, but I only have an hour to do it. Because, you aren't going to succeed at that. You need to be able to have a good assessment of your available resources in order to successfully accomplish your goals. Okay. And then the last thing is just gathering your support. I mean, again, this all sounds super simple right when you get started. And I don't care how simple the thing is you want to do. Like I've said, I'm just losing weight. I lose a pound a week. You cannot be simpler than that. But the challenges I run into is just insane. It just makes me realize how crazy as people we are. So make sure that you're ready to go. Like if you're going to make a decision to do something, put the time in, put the effort. Say, like, you know what? I am going to speak to myself in a positive way. This to me is a really important thing. Positive self-talk, so helpful, because if you just say, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, why am I not doing this? Oh, I'm so stupid. Strangely, your brain will sit there and go like, why, yes, you are stupid. And you will begin to act that way. So just like you can't expect anybody else to talk to you good if you want to do it yourself. So keep that in mind. Surround yourself with positive voices, and I'm a big fan of this. I've got like a bunch of podcasts that are just nothing but, Napoleon Hill and his geezerly old voice talking about, oh, you silent person, and it just gets me pumped up because anytime I drop down, I just need to have something to just sort of plug my brain with some positivity, and always remember that you've got to be your biggest supporter. So just keep that in mind. And then I am a huge fan. Lincoln's been extraordinarily helpful in being what I call success buddy. We meet weekly to just discuss our personal goals. How are we doing? Are we doing well? Are we doing poorly? What are we doing? It's just a great way of sort of discussing the process. But you absolutely can do it alone. It's just harder when you're the only voice you hear. And then, this idea of like organizing your physical and psychological space. It's important to do that. It's important to consciously say, you know what? If I want to eat properly, my kitchen needs to be sort of designed in such a way that I can get access to the foods that I know I have to eat, and that they aren't buried and made hard. Believe me, I have sat there, looked at my refrigerator, and said, "Oh, this is too complicated," and then reached for a candy bar. It's insane. So just keep that in mind. There's no end of the things that can throw you off your game. So do what you can to get to be on your game. Okay.